Hey everyone! Today we're diving into a question that I think tugs at pretty much all of us at some point. Where do we really come from? It often starts as a search for our ancestors, building a family tree. But as we're going to see, the real answer is something completely different than what we expect.
So, let's get into it. This whole journey always kicks off in the same way, with a really simple, really personal question.
Have you ever just stopped and thought about it? All the lives, all the stories, all the moments that had to line up perfectly just for you to be here right now. Who were all those people, and what little piece of them is still living on inside of us? It's a huge thought.
And usually the search begins like something out of a movie. We kind of picture ourselves as these historical detectives, digging through dusty old documents, listening to half-forgotten family stories. We're always hoping, aren't we, to find a connection to someone grand, a king, a legendary warrior, maybe even a saint. We trace those same few names over and over through faded records, just convinced there's some epic story waiting to be found.
But then, somewhere deep in that rabbit hole of records and names, a much deeper question starts to bubble up. And the search kind of pivots. It stops being about history and starts feeling a lot more like philosophy. It's not about who you're looking for anymore. It's about why you're even looking in the first place.
Okay, let's get real for a second. Let's say you do the search and you find out you're descended from a king. Does that fundamentally change who you are today? And what if you find out you're descended from a servant? Does that change you? Do you carry that story with a sense of pride or maybe a sense of burden? Suddenly, these aren't just names on a chart anymore, they're labels. And that, right there, is where this whole simple search gets incredibly complicated.
All right, now let's pull the camera way back and just look at the simple math of our ancestry. Because it turns out the whole idea of a family tree is completely wrong. What we're actually dealing with is more like an enormous tangled web.
So it starts off easy enough, right? You have two parents. They each had two parents, so that's 4 grandparents. They each had 2 parents, so that's 8 great-grandparents. You see the pattern. The number just doubles with every single generation you go back. It's a simple, predictable progression, but where does it actually lead?
Well, if you trace this back just 31 generations, which is roughly the high Middle Ages, the math says you should have over 2 billion individual ancestors. Let that sink in. 2 billion. But hang on, the entire population of the planet back then was less than 500 million people. So how on earth does that work? The numbers don't add up. And here's the answer. Our family tree isn't a tree at all. It can't be. It doesn't just expand outward forever into infinity. At some point, it has to fold back in on itself. It creates circles, loops, a web. Your distant cousins from one branch end up marrying distant cousins from another. The same ancestor starts popping up in different parts of your tree. It's not a possibility, it's a mathematical certainty. Which means my ancestral lines and your ancestral lines don't just run parallel, they absolutely 100% cross and weave together. Now, this mathematical web, it has a really powerful spiritual side to it because it forces us to think not just about who's in our family records, but who's been left out. Who's been forgotten? You see, not every story got preserved. It was a privilege to have your history recorded. So many of our ancestors weren't lost because of time. They were lost to silence. Their stories were erased, maybe because of caste or exile or shame, or simply because they were the people history tends to forget. A real, honest search for our past has to make space for all the stories of those who are denied one. And this leads us to this incredible concept from Sanātana Dharma, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. It translates to, the world is one family. And when you think about the math we just looked at, this isn't some nice, poetic metaphor. It's a literal, biological fact. It's a memory of our shared origin that, somewhere along the way, we've all forgotten. And this right here is the real turning point of the whole journey. The search that started by looking outward at names and dates and places, it has to turn around and start looking inward.
So it all boils down to this. What's your motivation? Are you searching for status? Are you hoping to find a king in your family tree to make you feel special today? Because that path, it just leads to labels, to pride, to division, and in the end, it really doesn't mean anything. Or
Are you searching for context? Are you trying to find a genuine connection to the human lives that came before you? Because that path leads to understanding, to connection, to self-awareness. And that means everything. When you truly grasp this, you arrive at this profound realization. When you see the endless, overlapping, interconnected web of humanity that makes up your own past, the whole idea of belonging to just one group, or one lineage, or one side of a conflict, it just starts to dissolve. And that feeling isn't a loss, it's total liberation.
This takes us to the final leg of our journey, to a place that's beyond all the names and forms we were looking for. It takes us to the true self.
There's an ancient shloka, a verse, that just captures this perfectly. It says, Name jati name nama, which means, I hold no caste, I claim no name. Just imagine the power in that. It's a radical declaration of freedom from the exact same labels we thought we were supposed to be searching for.
And it goes on. Name varna name grama. No social hierarchy, no varna can bind me. No village or hometown can define me. I mean, it makes perfect sense, right? If your ancestors are basically everyone who ever lived, how can your identity possibly be crammed into one tiny little box?
And this is the ultimate insight. The real goal was never about finding some neat and tidy answer in the past. The real goal is the act of questioning itself. Like the text says, the one who questions the self, he alone glimpses the truth. The journey, the search, the questioning, that is the destination. So we end up right back where we probably should have started. This whole grand search for our ancestors, it just leads us right back to the one who's doing the searching. So forget the names, forget the dates, forget the kings and the servants for a moment. The real question, maybe the only question that truly matters, is this one. Who is the I that's asking?